Good afternoon, Shakespeare students. Welcome again. This will be the first of several short modules that I will record to address some issues for the class. I will try to have these posted at 6:30, which would give you about a half an hour to watch them. And then my plan is to initiate a Zoom virtual classroom experiment with you starting at 7 o'clock. So hopefully that time frame will work well for most of you. So the first things I'd like to address have to do with the term paper. A number of people have spoken to me about the possibility of having extensions. I'm perfectly amenable to that. If you feel like you need more time due to these unusual circumstances, certainly we can talk about that. There is a little bit of an issue because the final exam you'll probably have a week to write that, and so if you extend the term paper too long, you're going to be biting into the time that you'll have for the final. So it's kind of a zero-sum game there a little bit. But certainly if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to contact me directly. Similarly, as I said, the final exam should in principle take place when it was originally scheduled. That would be on the evening of April 21st. I will probably give you a list of questions the previous class on April 14th that would give you the week to prepare and write the exam. I think that makes the most sense under the circumstances. I'll probably give you 4 or 5 questions to choose from, incorporating a variety of the plays that we've seen this semester. The other thing is that the university has mentioned 2 changes in the overall scheme of things. One is students are given the right for a pass-fail option in the class. So you can take the class for a grade, in which case it would be calculated into your grade point average, or you can take it as pass-fail, in which case you would just get credit if you pass and you wouldn't get credit if you fail. That's a decision that's for you to make. And then the last piece of information from the university is that the deadline to drop classes has been extended until April 24th. So again, if you feel like at the end of when all is said and done, if you do not want to take your chances, I guess you could drop it even after having taken the final exam. So that's the bureaucratic stuff that we needed to get out of the way. As I mentioned, I'll put up a couple of modules today that will hopefully address issues related to the discussion questions that I posted for you all last week. I noticed that the forum was a little bit less lively this week. I'm not sure if that has something to do with the fact that the realities of quarantine are sinking in and people are trying to get other things done, or just that, life is tumultuous right now, I would imagine, for most of you. I know it is for me. And so, that's neither here nor there. Hopefully you have had a chance to read the play first off. Think a little bit about some of the issues that we raised that I discussed in the lecture notes and considered some of the questions. And so I'll go through these, kind of briskly. I have a 10-minute limit on my video files, so I'll keep it brief. As Polonius says, brevity is the soul of wit. He says it facetiously, but I'm going to say it seriously, that we'll try to keep it brief here, but try to give you what you need. So the first of the discussion questions says, Shakespeare's version of the story differs quite a bit from his source, Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain, Historia Regnum Britanniae. In Geoffrey's version, Lear eventually goes to France to stay with Cordelia. Regan and Goneril both have sons who eventually try to take the throne from Cordelia. Cordelia rules over her father's kingdom once he dies for a period of 5 years. Cordelia is eventually imprisoned by her nephews and grieves so much over the loss of her kingdom that she kills herself. Why do you think Shakespeare changed the story? What, if anything, gets foregrounded in Shakespeare's version that does not emerge as central in Geoffrey's? Is this important? Well, obviously, having a story where Lear doesn't, disinherit the one daughter who loves him and instead goes and lives with her and then ends up dying, and then has her, her situation with regards to the throne is all sort of posthumous for him. that wouldn't be anything like the play that we have. So clearly Shakespeare has taken great liberties with the historical source material. Now the question that's asked is, why did he do that, and what did he gain from that? Probably one of the key things is, the play is, if I were to ask you what the play is about, there's the issue of sort of paternity and patriarchy and how those two things relate. The role of the king and the role of the father seem to be kind of similar. And it's sort of curious in the beginning of the play where Lear sort of, part of his problem is that he forgets that. And so he, is dealing as if he is just a father and going on his, about his business, and doesn't sort of give sufficient weight to the fact that the monarchy matters a lot. And, when he abdicates, and he has this naive vision, I think, that he's going to abdicate the throne and the responsibilities of the throne, because he's old. Lear is over 80 years old. He's an old man, and he's reaching the end of his life, and so the cares and the responsibilities of the monarchy are probably starting to be a lot for him. He may not be totally up to handling them anymore. Yet, when he abdicates, he still wants to have the role and the respect associated with being the king. And so, the key thing that that sort of unsettles Goneril and Regan is that he kind of doesn't back down. He shows up with 100 of his men, and they're sort of debauching almost. That's actually one of the questions coming up that we'll address quickly. But his behavior has not been one of abdication, and so of course the whole story turns on the fact that Goneril and Regan are these opportunistic daughters who have every interest in maintaining their place in the sequence of inheritance, and they're clearly ready to embellish or manipulate how their feelings in order to accommodate their father when he makes this request of them. Cordelia isn't, obviously, and Cordelia is punished extensively. So in coming back to that question, the key issue in the play has to do with Lear's sort of stubbornness and his inability to acknowledge the truth of Cordelia's emotions versus the false nature of the compliments that Goneril and Regan are feeding to him purely for his ego, right? And that whole sequence, and again, that's the following question, is a very egotistical scene. He sets this up. It's a staged piece, and it's like, I want you to tell me how much you love me. I couldn't help this week watching Donald Trump dealing with the governors of Michigan and Washington, who apparently have complained about the way he has distributed ventilators in the United States in the midst of a pandemic international health crisis, and him saying, well, if you're not going to be nice to me, if you're not going to say nice things to me, then maybe you guys should go get your own ventilators. Now, we can argue about senility in a lot of different contexts here, but there's something fundamentally sick about that. And certainly, Lear, on a different level, exhibits some sort of sickness in his necessity to be praised by his daughters. And so, again, coming back to Cordelia, that whole relationship with Cordelia and Lear's acknowledgement of the mistake that he made is precisely what the play is. And so, if we didn't have, the type of change that Shakespeare made to the historical material, we obviously wouldn't have the play King Lear. We might have a historical story of Lear, this old king, but we wouldn't have the same pathos and tragedy that we've seen. You might have noticed in the lecture notes that there are a variety of versions even of Shakespeare's tale, and this is a play where it actually can become kind of complicated because the two versions are different. A lot of times there's minor differences, who gets attributed a line or something. In this one, they're kind of major. I'm running out of my 10-minute time limit, so I'm going to stop this, and I will speak to you again on the second part. Bye.